Shalom and welcome to this edition of Revealing the Truth, where we cover the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth. I'm your host, the Reverend Rabbi Eric Walker, and as we do on the first Monday of every month at the 12 o'clock hour, we talk with Joe Newby, who is the proprietor of conservativefiringline.com, a conservative blog which examines the news of the day. That's why we talk about the headlines, along with the heartlines and the biblical truth. Joe is a 10-year veteran of the United States Marine Corps who wrote for theexaminer.com for 6 years. His articles have also appeared at Newsbusters, Spokane Faith and Values, and other sites. He currently runs a conservative firing line where he discusses issues important to conservatives. He's the co-author of a book called Banned: How Facebook Enables Militant Islamic Jihad, and he is an avid bird lover, and his bird appears on our program every month to our delight. Joe, welcome to this edition of Revealing the Truth.
Eric, it's great to see you again. How are you today?
Good to see you, my friend. I am well, thank you. Getting ready to leave in 10 days for Israel as our annual pilgrimage that we take 50 people here from Birmingham every year to Israel, to the land, and it's always an exciting time. There's always excitement going on in the political, religious, and biblical arena in Israel, so it's a trip I look forward to every year. And what's happening in your life, I heard a little bit of the discussion that your wife is progressing, coming along pretty well.
Yes, she is, and despite the fact that Facebook thinks she's a Russian or non-existent, the fact is she is actually doing quite well. Much better than this time last month, Eric. She has been declared cancer-free, so her chemo is complete, and she's now recuperating from all of that. So we're very pleased to see her progress.
Well, I'm very happy to hear that. She's been in prayer. We put out a prayer bulletin. No specifics, of course, just asking for prayer for her, so our entire community of prayer warriors would know to intercede on her behalf. And that's very important to us because you're a part of this family. I think that when I take a look at when you first came on with us and we developed our friendship with you, I want to look at the date because it's an important one. You were in February of 2017, and that began the regular feature as we had you on just about every month from that February, starting in March, July, August, October, November, December. You've appeared on the show some 35 or 40 times. And have been just a steady voice of reason in a world filled with chatter, junk, and garbage.
Oh, thank you, Eric. It's been a pleasure to be here, and I really look forward to spending these days with you, and on the first Monday of every month. And it's been a great pleasure to be here with you.
Well, it's been very, very exciting. What's really interesting is how prophetic the work that you and Adina did, your co-author on the book about Facebook.
Yes.
Facebook has only gotten more entrenched in this defamation. I don't even really know what to call it. This technocracy, I guess, is where it lands. Is that there are some global technological leaders who are, and I just really learned of this. It made sense to me when I heard it. That there is this concept of technocracy, that they're trying to connect the environment, the economy, technology, economics, and pull them all together and take control over them. And they're actually accomplishing it because of these incredibly large databases filled with information that we are so readily, easily giving every piece of information about ourselves that it's easy to aggregate and come up with thought conditioning. This is how Nazi Germany rose to power, was you conditioned the thinking of the people propaganda-wise. This is the technique that's used. And I actually saw this, and I think maybe this will give people the idea and understanding. In the early 70s, I worked for a steel company, and we were going to be working with a company in Mexico to bring fresh water. In the 70s, potable water was not available, nationally distributed in all of Mexico. And so I was sent down there to Mexico City to work with a local representative to do an analysis to come up with a proposal to put pipelines all across Mexico. And I was taken on a guided tour into very remote regions all throughout parts of Mexico, that in inner Mexico, where nobody else would ever go. And I noticed that people were living in these pieces of aluminum sheet, corrugated sheet metal was their homes, were just lean-tos and basic shanty huts that were made this way, and a family of 4 or 5 would be living there. But behind this corrugated metal structure that was just as flimsy as it could be was a satellite dish. And every home had a satellite dish. And I said to the person I was with, I said, this is mind-boggling to me. I don't understand this. Why do they have all these satellite dishes? He said, this is how the state government disseminates information. And so this is how they control the people. This is how they give them their information. And so it is a state-run television station that is piped into everybody's home by satellite, and this dish is provided by the government so that the people are conditioned by information. This is back in the 70s. This is now almost 50 years ago.
Right.
And this was the way. So we saw then the Soviet Union employ propaganda. We saw Vietnam employ propaganda. We see that's being done in North Korea, propaganda. We see Venezuela, propaganda. We see that this propaganda move, but we have never called social media a propaganda medium. But in its essence, it is, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. You're absolutely right, Eric. And there's one distinction I would like to make as well. You talked about how the state, propagandizes its citizens. Here in the United States, we have the same thing, Eric. In those countries, people had no choice. Here, however, it's not a case of the state propagandizing. It's a case of media outlets willingly allowing themselves to be used as propaganda outlets. CNN, MSNBC, and so on and so forth are actually allowing themselves to be used as propaganda. And you're right about the social media. It's become the same thing happening there with Facebook now deciding, for example, that Louis Farrakhan is an extreme right-wing figure who is dangerous and must be silenced. Look, I don't agree with a single thing that Louis Farrakhan says, okay? He's anti-Semitic. He's off his rocker, in my view. But you know what? He has a right to his opinion. And who is Facebook to silence him or anybody else for that matter? Who is Facebook to decide that Laura Loomer is dangerous and essentially a terrorist and denying her the ability to make a living? This is the kind of thing that we're facing now, Eric. It's not just a matter of Facebook taking one side over another. Now Facebook is telling you, Mark Zuckerberg, is telling you what you are allowed to think, what you are allowed to say, what is acceptable thought, what is not acceptable thought. This is Orwellian, Eric. It's Orwellian, it's un American, it's anti American, um, and it's a danger. It is a clear and present danger to the United States, our form of freedom, our form of democracy, and it is something that Congress had better step up and do something with. Now, I hear these people say, but Facebook is a private company. Okay, yeah, it is. But I don't know of any other private company, Eric, that is allowed to engage in defamation. I don't know of any private company that is allowed to engage in forgery. And I don't know of any private company that is allowed to do what Facebook is doing in terms of actually depriving people of their way of life, their livelihood, simply because they hold a political point of view that Facebook doesn't like. There's no other company on earth that is allowed to do this, as far as I know, Eric.
We had a story that we posted. I did not verify the story, but during the recent bombing out of Gaza, there was a lengthy presentation made by Benjamin Netanyahu clearly stating that if this doesn't cease in 24 hours, that there will be reprisals and that they will be moving into Gaza, and whatever territory they take, they will annex, and that if there's not a ceasefire, that we're basically giving you 24 hours notice that
Right.
if we start moving people in, we're not moving them back. The border is going to move with the territory we take. So
Right.
I felt that it was time that the message be brought out that Israel is the only nation, whether or not this story was factual. During the 3 prior Gaza wars, Israel did drop flyers and messages to places saying where terrorist cells were located, and if you were close by, that in 24 hours we're going to be sending a rocket right to that corner unit, so we're giving you 24 hours notice to get out. There's no country in the world that is that benevolent, that generous in the time of
Right.
war to warn civilians because they're so concerned with taking collateral damage, civilian life. They don't want to take
Right.
an innocent life, that they're willing to broadcast publicly their next move. So
Right.
I brought this out as my point is only Israel, only the heart of the Jew, allows for us to be the most threatened and maligned and persecuted people in the world, but yet we would give you the benefit of a warning if you were an innocent to get out of the way because in 24 hours we're coming.
Right.
This is the heart and we've been so maligned that anti-Semitism is now, it's okay hate speech. It's one of the,
Right.
it's like one of the whitelisted forms of hate speech that's okay. And
Right.
this is why Louis Farrakhan gets away with what he gets away with, because anti-Semitism is whitelisted. It's okay. You can't talk about other races of people, but you can talk about the Jews. That's okay. And the increase in anti-Semitism is now on par with the growth rate in 1939. This is very scary.
It is very scary. It is very scary. And when you have outlets like Facebook and Twitter, and you have the media that is taking the anti-Semitic views that it's taking. Look, we've got 2 members of the House of Representatives right now, Eric, Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar, who are actually going so far as to defend Hamas's terror attacks against Israel, against Israeli civilians. And they're in Congress. And where's the outrage? Where's the outcry? Where's the outrage? Why isn't CNN or MSNBC coming down hard on these people? Where's Nancy Pelosi? Why isn't she saying something about this? But yet here they are. It's Israel's fault that Hamas in Gaza is shooting rockets and hitting Israeli civilians. What's next, Eric? Tell me what's next. I went on Twitter last night and I asked um, Rashida Tlaib. I was being tongue in cheek, but I was just wondering, what's next? Is she going to blame Israel for the Holocaust? I mean, this is how ridiculous we've gotten.
Several years back, we talked about jihad by migration and immigration, and made a point of talking about the percentages statistically of when a nation becomes 2% Muslim or 4% Muslim, 6%, 8%, and begins to get representation and acts of terror and those kind of statistical analysis that were done about Europe and about the sub-Saharan African region, and watching that there are predictable patterns to this. Now we're seeing this predictable pattern, and they are commanding a disproportionate amount of coverage in the area of advancing their cause, which is the cause of Islam. Okay, not the cause of America, not the cause of this country, but advancing the cause of Islam through support of Hamas, a terrorist organization, or ISIS, a terrorist organization. And we're going to hear more and more of this, but America has been silent for a long time. The only thing that America has been vocal about is hating Trump and this ridiculous Mueller investigation and the foolishness of a pursuit of obstruction of justice where there is no crime. How can you obstruct justice where there is no crime?
When Democrats own the House of Representatives.
That to me is obstruction of justice. So in looking at this 2020 landscape, which is coming, how are you looking at it? How do you feel about it? What is your sense? Now we have 21 or 22 Democratic candidates who have thrown their hat in the ring: Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders and Bebo the clown and just a whole wealth of others. Maybe I'll run. I don't know.
Well, why not, Eric? I mean, here's my hope. My hope is that by the time the 2020 primaries come around, there will actually be more Democrats running for the White House than Democrats voting for the Democrats running for the White House. That's kind of my hope.
Right.
And who knows? Maybe they'll all cancel each other out. I'm talking tongue in cheek, of course, but seriously, Eric, the Democrat Party is run off the rails. I think more and more people are starting to wake up finally to see just how radical these Democrats really are. It seems like, they're going, they're tripping over each other, Eric, trying to out-left one another to see which one could be the more radical. Now you've got Cory Booker talking about his outrageous plan to license the Second Amendment, which, by the way, cannot be done. There's been court decisions that says you cannot license a right, like the right to own a gun, the right to keep and bear arms. You cannot license that. The right to free speech, you cannot license that. But that's exactly what the Democrats want to do. They want to license rights that are enumerated within the Constitution.
Do you see Bill Barr actually prosecuting doing this FISA investigation, doing this email investigation? Are we going to see Debbie Wasserman, whatever her last name is, be prosecuted for hiring a known spy who had access to classified information and shared it? Is there going to be any accountability whatsoever for the Obama and Clinton debacles of the prior 8 years?
I can only hope there will be, but to be honest with you, Eric, I honestly don't expect to see it happen. And I hate to say that, but I'm afraid that that's going to be the case. I don't think, unless, of course, Donald Trump wins in 2020. If Donald Trump wins in 2020, maybe. But the way things are now, I would be very surprised to see any Democrat being held accountable for anything between now and the election.
It's just absurd that these crimes have taken place that are criminal. I mean, lying on FISA applications. That the attitude is to impeach the president, impugn his character, not acknowledge his accomplishments, but to be so focused on things which are basically non-representative. The House of Representatives is the House of non-representatives because they're not representing the interests of their constituents. They're representing their own political interests. And this is antithetical to what the Founding Fathers wanted and required, which is why, which I think is so encouraging, is that in 2020, every single seat of the House of Representatives is up for grabs.
And my hope and my message to folks is it's simple. I don't care what the position is, whether it be Congress, Senate, dog catcher, whatever. If it has a D behind its name, vote it out of office. It's that simple. The Democrat Party right now, Eric, in my opinion, has gone so far to the left, so far off the rails, that I cannot honestly say that I honestly don't see how it can even be considered an American political party. It is not.
Joe, we've so lost our way, but the quiet of I mean, who's talking? Lindsey Graham. And he's basically the only one who's saying anything, but nobody's really doing anything. That's part of the problem, is that there's no outcry. I find it fascinating that Fox is doing Democrat candidate town hall meetings. You know, it's kind of insanely brilliant. That the conservative television network is introducing you to the ridiculous ideas and notions of these people and allowing it to be heard so that they don't have to make it up when Laura Ingraham or Sean Hannity goes off on them. They don't have to make it up. They're giving them all the sound bites they need so that they can be accurately reporting what's being said. But the things that are being said are absurd. They're an insult to the average person's intelligence and is an affront to every Bible-believing Christian or Jew that's out there. Is that this country, if it goes this direction, even a little bit in this direction, is going to implode, and our entire structure as a nation will collapse, and then we will become the divided United States, and you're going to find that California will have a referendum to leave and to become an independent country, and their GNP is sufficient to do so. And there may be confederations forming, and that would be the collapse of us being one of the youngest nations in the world, failing by not being faithful to our foundation, and basically cutting the house down from the foundation, just pulling the foundation out from under it.
Right.
It's just not going to work. And it's just people who hate Donald Trump. They don't love America. They just hate Donald Trump.
Right. And it goes even deeper than that, Eric. You know, when you take a look at what the Democrats have said, Democrats have shown, they've illustrated, they've proven that they have no love for the Constitution whatsoever. Even though the ones in Congress have taken an oath to protect and defend the Constitution, they attack it repeatedly. They're constantly attacking the Second Amendment, right to keep and bear arms. They have absolutely no use for the Electoral College, except, of course, if there's a Democrat elected to office, then they love the Electoral College. But right now, they are deliberately working to sabotage the means by which we elect a president to the United States. You know, something that is actually called for in the Constitution. They want to get rid of that. And like you said, it's primarily because of their hatred for Donald Trump.
We're talking with Joe Newby, proprietor, editor-in-chief at conservativefiringline.com, and co-author of Banned: How Facebook Enables Islamic Jihad. We're talking about the headlines of the day, the turning of this nation, rise in anti-Semitism, rise in anti-conservative values, and this noise that's been coming out of Washington for so long, and seems to be incessant chatter and noise for the destruction of all those things that Americans value, which is life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. These are certain inalienable rights given to us by our Creator, and the defiance of what God calls life, what God calls liberty, and what God calls the pursuit of happiness. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll rejoin Joe and talk about more of the things that are happening on the headlines around the country. We'll be right back. The Lord meets you right where you are, and so does Igniting a Nation's new live streaming outlets. You can now watch Revealing the Truth, Revealing the Bible, and Prophecy Revealed simulcast live each Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 1 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time on YouTube Live, Facebook Live, Vimeo, Periscope, and through our website, www.ignitinganation.com. No matter what device you are using, our program will automatically scale so you won't have to miss a single program. And if you happen to miss an episode, you can always subscribe to the Igniting a Nation YouTube channel and access over 1,000 interviews and never miss your favorite authors, special guests, and topics that interest you the most.
There are lots of ways to see Israel, but nothing compares to seeing the land of the book and the people of the book through the eyes of two Jewish believers who can take you on a journey that will bring the entire Bible to life. When you join Rabbi Eric Walker and his #1 rated tour guide, Edo Canaan, in Israel, you'll experience incredible teachings, first-class accommodations, and actually walk where Jesus walked. You will experience the Bible transforming from black and white into living color, and you will never see the Bible in the same way again. For more information, visit us at www.ignitinganation.com/events.
The Lord contends with what contends with you, and Igniting a Nation is committed to bringing to light each and every issue that faces a believer's life. Our live stream programming and teachings take you on a journey to finding biblical truth from a wide variety of experts who share their insights into a deeper walk with the Lord. We have assembled the most comprehensive panel of experts in the fields of prophecy, caregiving, healing from trauma, shame, and abuse, and so much more. We continue to expand our teachings and programming to meet your needs. We're committed to healing the nations with biblical truth. Visit www.ignitinganation.com to develop a deeper walk with the Lord and start your journey to a transformed life. The Bible commands us to study to show ourselves approved, but most study using Bible study tools and not actually studying the Bible chapter and verse. Igniting a Nation is pleased to present Revealing the Bible, recorded and taught each week before a live audience. We take you deeper into the actual Bible and verse in both Hebrew and English and connect the dots between the Old and New Testament. You can attend our 2 classes in Tuscaloosa and Birmingham or watch the program every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Central Time on ignitinganation.com and all our other simulcast outlets. For more information, visit www.ignitinganation.com/events. Shalom and welcome back to this edition of Revealing the Truth, where we cover the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth. I'm your host, the Reverend Rabbi Eric Walker, and we're talking with Joe Newby. Maven, who has co-authored a book called Banned: How Facebook Enables Islamic Militant Jihad. And that is just a fascinating subject, especially in this season where Facebook is becoming a very active participant in censorship and endorsement. Wherever there's censorship, there is also default or de facto endorsement of various theologies, ideologies, and government positions. So Zuckerberg and his team are adhering to a particular ideology which is advancing voices which are, it's taking quite an unusual turn in the world, and he represents this technocracy of world leaders who are ultimately going to be shaping the future landscape of the economy through technology and through technology management. And so, Joe Newby, welcome back to the program.
Thank you for having me, Eric. It's good to see you again.
So, Joe, we're seeing some trends, and they're in the realm of anti-Semitism and synagogue violence. So we have the shooting in San Diego, we had the shooting in Pittsburgh, now the Jewish community is being targeted. Statistically, twice as many incidents reported so far this year as last year, and last year was a record-breaking year. So anti-Semitism is on the rise in America, and unfortunately, an observation that I will bring from the Jewish perspective is that the Michael Cohens and the Rod Rosensteins and all the Jewish names that are now coming into light who are complicit in these various schemes, Epstein and various other names, are tainting the very reputation of the Jewish community, which has tainted its own reputation by being as left-leaning as they've been. Now they're engaged in illicit activities which are being brought to the forefront, which only supports the conspiracy theorists that the Jews run the world.
Right. Well, you know, Eric, and I hate to say this, but the fact is that it doesn't matter what religious point of view you look at, whether it be Judaism or Christianity, just as there are left-wing Jews, and I agree with what you're saying, by the way, because it's very true, but there are also a lot of left-wing Christians as well. And I have heard things being said by left-wing pastors or people who hold that title, left-wing Christians, left-wing pastors, that frankly make me cringe. So I think it's something more base than that, Eric. I think it when you get right down to it, we're at a point. We talk about the Bible talks about Satan and the ruler of this world and how he prowls around and seeking whom he might destroy, and I think we're seeing that, Eric. We're seeing evil being looked upon as good, good being seen as evil. Um, like we talked about in the last half hour, we now have members of Congress who are condemning Israel for having the audacity to defend itself, to defend its civilians, its women, its children from terrorist attacks from Hamas. And these people are elected into Congress, for crying out loud. Uh, we have an elected member of Congress who talks about 9/11 as being some people did something. Give me a break, Eric. Um, when you get right down to it, it's a three-letter word. It's sin. That's at the very root. That's what it is. And we were all told thousands of years ago that these times would be here. They're here. Um, and fortunately, I like to say that we know how it's going to end, but it's not going to be fun in the meantime.
It's so interesting that we had this horrific episode take place in Sri Lanka.
Yes.
And the two voices representing the Democratic Party refused to call them Christians.
Well, not just them, Eric. The whole media. They weren't Christians. They were Easter worshipers.
Easter celebrators, right? Easter, right. It is changing the narrative and the vocabulary, and yet I just keep remembering the silent majority. The silent majority. It just plays over my head all the time as to the silent majority. Have we fallen back into that pattern that we have relinquished all voice? The only time that we're going to say or do anything may be on Election Day. Maybe. That's the possible day in which we're going to make our position known by our vote. But in the meantime, we've stopped being vocal.
Right.
The only ones who protest are on the left. And if you have a right-leaning voice, you're going to be shut down. Your freedom of speech is going to be stifled.
That's right. And the thing of it is, Eric, is Zuckerberg does these things, and it's not just him. All right, he's probably the biggest, but he's not the only one. I call him the Silicon Valley axis of evil for a reason. All right, Facebook's not the only one. You got Twitter, Google. You now have payment processors that are getting into all of this. It is absolutely ridiculous what's happening online. But you're right in that conservatives are an easy target. We don't, by our nature, we don't go out and protest. Maybe we should. Maybe we should. If Zuckerberg had done this to, say, a group of LGBT types, a group of people who, let's say, transgenders, for example, what do you think would happen? There would be hundreds of thousands of leftist protesters all over Facebook, all over their headquarters, and you think Zuckerberg would ignore that? No, he would go out and he would meet their demands. We don't do that because we're too busy trying to make a living for our family. We're too busy trying to get ahead in life. And so we don't get out and protest. Maybe we should. We don't file the uh, the mega lawsuits, but maybe we should. Maybe Facebook should face, I don't know, a class action suit filed by, I don't know, a couple million conservatives for their actions. Uh, like I said before, people like to say that Facebook is a private company; they can do what they want. Well, no, they can't. Private companies cannot get away with defaming people, using forgery against them, and depriving them of their living. All right, these things are it's not right. In some cases, it's downright illegal. But Facebook is allowed to get away with it because, well, they're a private company. And frankly, personally, I'm getting kind of tired of hearing that excuse.
Right. So, Joe, what do we do? From an editorial standpoint, from a local community action standpoint, what do we do?
Well, there are several things that can be done. I would say that if you're in a position to go down and protest Facebook, by all means, do it. Do it. The left does it quite effectively. Do it. Get, 20, 30, 50, 100, maybe even 1,000 conservatives with signs to go down and protest and start getting word out. Let Zuckerberg know that we're not just going to sit by quietly. By all means, protest. Find out where Zuckerberg's going to be. Protest him every day. That's number one. Number two, there are a whole bunch of conservative alternatives online, alternatives to Facebook. There's one that just came up, is being put together by a good friend of mine. It's called Hardcore Conservatives. It's still kind of under construction, but it's up. You can go to it now and join up. There's a whole bunch of these. Spreely, ProAmericaOnly.org. There's one, faith-based one, Social Cross. Take advantage of these and stop being addicted to Facebook. Don't be a slave to Facebook. All right? So get away from Facebook. Sure, keep an account there if you must, because they're still the biggest one. But get out to some of these others. Hardcore Conservatives, Freely, Liberty Rush. There's a whole bunch of them, Eric, a whole bunch. And people need to get out of that Facebook box and go somewhere else where they do celebrate free speech. That's the second thing. Third thing is to contact Congress. And every time you hear or see about something about someone being, banned or slapped by Facebook, pick up that telephone and contact the White House line and let them know. And pick up that phone and contact contact your member of Congress. Call the White House switchboard. Call Congress. Let your senators know. Let your House member know. And you keep calling them every day. Hey, what are you going to do about this? What are you going to do about this? What are you going to do about this? And eventually they're going to get sick and tired of hearing from you and hopefully do something. Now, there's one other thing that can be done, Eric. There is a measure called the Stop Social Media Censorship Act of 2019. It has already been introduced in a few states, Florida, West Virginia, a few others, Arkansas. I would say to people, get in touch with your state representatives in your state capitals and your state legislatures and advise them about this measure. I've got several pieces about it on the conservative firing line. But basically what that measure does, Eric, is it says that if passed into law, it says users of social media sites of 75 million people or more have a private right if they are censored on because of their political or their religious point of view. And in that case, they have a private right to file a lawsuit and recoup at the very minimum $75,000 from that social media site and whatever other penalties the state wants to throw in. And this is being done. This is a nationwide effort. It has already been introduced in several states across the country. And I would recommend to people that they go out and they contact their state representatives, Eric, and advise their state representatives about this law and encourage them to push for it. Those are just some of the things that can be done. But again, you're right. It's something has to happen. Otherwise, we are going to find ourselves in really deep trouble come 2020. Because my concern is that companies like Facebook are going to make it literally impossible for people like you and I to spread the conservative message in 2020.
Joe, I'm wondering, just free thinking for a minute. Jeff Sessions spent 2 years as the Attorney General.
Mm-hmm.
On the surface, it appeared like he was a ineffective, not anything what we thought he was going to be. Mm-hmm. Did Donald Trump pull off one of the greatest, most intelligent, most creative deceptions that's ever occurred out of Washington, D.C., that Jeff Sessions was actually assigned with some special drain the swamp assignment that nobody would follow, nobody would pay any attention to, because the whole thing, the recusal from the Mueller investigation, what difference would it have made if Jeff Sessions had not recused himself? It wouldn't have made a bit of difference at all. So right. Was that the line we were supposed to fall for? And the media was fed, and everybody looked over here, and David Copperfield over here is making the Statue of Liberty disappear, and the QE2 disappear. And are we going to find out that Donald Trump pulled one of the greatest coups in all of political history, because that's just his nature, and he was smart enough, and Jeff Sessions was just the right Southern gentleman to go along with it and say, yeah, the swamp needs to be drained, and I know how to get to these people, but you're going to have to keep the public, the media's got to be off my back, I've got to be considered, and I'm willing to take one for the team. And do you think there's a possibility this might go down in history as being something special?
You know, you may have hit on something there, Eric. I got to tell you, I to be honest, I never even thought about that, but I think you just might be onto something.
I mean, Jeff Sessions, a senator from the state that I live in, mm-hmm. who did a fabulous job as a state senator, all of a sudden to become a putz, to become a complete buffoon, an idiot, an ineffective bureaucrat. It just never sat right with anybody here that he was that big a loser when he got called up from the minor leagues to the majors, that he was the strikeout king. Something had to be going on. There had to be a special assignment there that would and I think in so many ways that Donald Trump is this genius in throwing the media, letting the media have this feeding frenzy about things that do not mean a thing, while he's over here making all kinds of things happen, and is about to expose. And I know that the Inspector General's report is going to come out, and there's going to be some things in there that are going to shake a lot of people up. You know, how much they shake up will determine how much Jeff Sessions did for 2 years prior to the Inspector General digging in and writing a summary of everything Jeff Sessions did. I just can't believe that he was that big a buffoon as he's being portrayed.
You know, and like I said, Eric, I've never quite thought of it in quite those terms, but I think you might be onto something, because, look, I've always liked Jeff Sessions. I've always thought he was a stand-up guy. You know, I've watched him in the Senate. I know how he served the people of Alabama, and I tend to agree. I mean, it's like, what happened to this guy? You know, you don't go from being, you know, basically a superstar to a klutz. What happened? But yeah, you might be onto something, Eric, and that's something I'm definitely going to keep an eye out for.
Because I would hate to throw him into the Jimmy Carter category.
Yeah, me too.
And Jimmy Carter has just turned into become historically a blot on the Southern community as far as being a leader, and even as far as being a Baptist minister. He is just he's overstayed his welcome as far as I'm concerned. But you know, unfortunately, you and I again have run out of time. There's so much to talk about. You can catch Joe every day. New information on conservativefiringline.com. You can sign up for their daily newsletter, subscribe right on their page, join about 150,000, 126,000 other people on Facebook. But also you can follow him on other social media as well. But look for the name Joe Newby and Conservative Firing Line, and follow very concise, precise reporting where you're going to find the truth. And the truth may not be palatable and pleasant for you, but one of the things they are committed to do is to shed light where mainstream media is not looking. Joe Newby, always a pleasure to be with you, my friend. I'll see you next month, same time, same place, first Monday of the month at the 12 o'clock hour.
Thank you, Eric. The pleasure is all mine.
God bless. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll bring you the next edition of Revealing the Truth.